Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Astrology Now with astrologer Babula Clement and myself, Cheryl Gotchall. So nice to be back with you, Babula. We have a
Yes,
lot
it
to talk
is.
about.
We sure do.
Yeah. But before we get into this current lunar cycle, you're just going to lead us into what's just happened with the Mars-Uranus conjunction. Lay that groundwork for us.
Yeah, so we did talk about that last time, of course, and we've all just been through that in the last week. And as expected, there was lots of turmoil,
Mm.
disruptions. There was a big earthquake in the Philippines. There was volcanoes are going off in southern Italy.
Yeah.
Um,
The the re-
what's that?
I was going to say the recent attempt on Trump's life.
Absolutely. And the complete switch that's going on around the media narrative around Biden.
Mm.
Oh, it's so interesting.
Isn't it?
So, yes, topsy-turvy, turmoil, shocks, surprises. And yet, for astrologers, you kind of go, the thing with Uranus, when Uranus is very activated, which it is by Mars, you know there's going to be shocks and changes and sudden unexpected events, but you don't know what they're going to
Mm.
be exactly. So, it's always that phrase, expect the unexpected.
Yeah. Mm.
And that's what you get with the Uranus-Mars conjunction. It's very explosive. And of course, in the sign of Taurus, one of the things Taurus is about, it has a lot to do with worldly power and the relationship that money has to worldly power and control.
Yes, a lot.
A lot.
Who's driving that car?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So yeah, it's been very, very tumultuous. And then there's the aftermath of that. I mean, the shockwave of the attempted assassination on Trump does send shockwaves
Mm.
out into the world, regardless of anyone's opinion of him or what happened. And of course, and then there's all the speculation about what really happened, and people go, "Oh, is this?"
The conspiracy theories just are the
They're
plethora of them.
flying everywhere and on from all different directions of points of view as well. It's been
Yeah.
fascinating.
But Uranus is about expect the unexpected. But I have to say, when Donald Trump first became president, I thought, well, he's going to be dead in 6 months. So in a way, it wasn't the unexpected part was that he was, around this long without anyone attempting to assassinate him.
Yes.
That was a
I,
surprise.
I agree. And
Yeah.
there may have been attempts we don't know about. This was very public, but
Yes.
I absolutely agree. The man seems to be made of Teflon, he's pretty tough.
Yes.
Uh,
So
y-
I just
Yeah.
and I think too, because I'm just looking at my notes here, but we've got some because it's Moon in Capricorn, and I'm thinking about the toughness of him in himself actually. And I was thinking and Capricorn represents history and those images of him standing there with his fist up in the air. It's an historical image. It's going to go down in the annals of history.
That is a phenomenal image, and the flag behind him, and
Yeah. So we've got that Capricornian energy
extraordinary
lasting
image.
effect. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely extraordinary. So, and then of course, in the middle of all of that, and in the following days, there's all whole this whole issue about, is Biden fit for office, and now the media and famous personalities are all coming out and saying, well, I think maybe it's time. Anyway, so all of this is, and there's been turmoil politically with elections in the UK,
Mm,
in France,
mm.
big time. So there's always, I find when there are big transits happening, either in our own chart or just collectively, it's one thing to talk about that moment, but there's always
Mm,
an aftermath.
mm.
There's then, well, how did that change the landscape of your life, of your experience of that situation?
Yes, exactly.
It's not just for that short period of time. It's like it has an impact for some time. So, um, yes, and then of course, that Mars Uranus conjunction was conjunct Algol, the famous fixed star that we talked a bit about last time. So, and I use the phrase, losing our heads, heads will roll because of the myth, around Medusa having her head chopped off.
Mm.
So interesting, isn't it? And, the shot was to the head.
Yes, that was interesting. Yeah.
Quite literal. These things often play it in a very, very literal way.
Mm.
Um, okay, so that's happened. I just thought it was worth mentioning. Of course, anyone who follows any other astrologers, they're all online. Everyone's been talking about it. So most of you watching this will be pretty aware that that's all been happening.
Mm.
So that leads us into the full moon. On the 21st of July, and in Brisbane and the eastern states of Australia, it's at the exact moment of it is 8:16 p.m. So that's Sunday evening.
Mm.
Sunday night is the moment of the full moon. Our skies are very clear at the moment, mostly,
Yeah.
so should get a spectacular view of that. The light should be quite strong.
Mm.
So there's a lot to say about this full moon, as
Yeah.
we were chatting about before, because it's at 29 degrees of Capricorn.
Mm.
So first of all, I want to comment, some of you will have heard that this is a blue moon, and a lot of people immediately then say, what does that mean? What does that mean? I personally don't ascribe a lot of meaning to it, except that the reason it's a blue moon is that it's the second full moon in the same sign. So
Yes.
4 weeks ago, there was a full moon at 1 degree of Capricorn.
Yes, because I was thinking, I thought, didn't we do this? Oh, okay, that's another one.
That's right. And so that's why we say once in a blue moon.
Yes, yeah.
So every year there's going to be a full moon, a lunation, at the very beginning of a sign and another one at the very end of the sign. And that's because we have 13 lunar months or months
Mm.
in a 12-month calendar.
Mm.
And so there has to be a double up in a sign. There just
Yeah,
has to be.
yeah.
And so this year we get it in Capricorn, but what a doozy, because it's at 29, the powerful anaretic degree, which I these days ascribe a great significance to. Anytime any planet gets to 29 degrees, it's really potent. And it's conjunct our friend Pluto.
Yes, I know. First of all, can we just talk about the moon in Capricorn itself?
Yes.
Um, because I was thinking about that because Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Saturn, yes. Um,
Yes.
it's enduring, and there's a sense of commitment there, that's of lasting. So, and I was thinking, well, there's probably only a few long-term commitments that we can make to ourselves. And one could be to our partner, one could be to our health, and one could be to our career. And they're really long-term, if you do commit to it, they're long-term and they have an effect, an after effect like you're talking about, don't they?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. This sign is very much about commitment and dedication and focus and determination. Capricorns don't give up easily. They
Mm.
hang in even when the going gets tough.
Yeah.
And they're made of tough stuff. And so the moment of the full moon is right at the end of the sign. So the preceding 2.5 days, so all weekend, um, the moon will be going through the sign of Capricorn, and then it peaks to its absolute fullness
Mm.
at that 29 degrees. So yeah, it's a period, and this full moon's highlighting all of those Capricorn themes. What are we committed to? What are we dedicated to? What do we hang in there with? Even when things get challenging and difficult, it's that
Mm.
inner fortitude, isn't it?
It is. And it's also about the cold, hard reality of things too.
Absolutely.
Maybe once you make this commitment, well, this is the reality. This is what you're going to be facing. This is the challenge. This, whatever it is, there's no empathy about it. Or, the cold, hard facts, I suppose, of the
Yeah.
situation, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Grit your teeth, grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Get like we were just chatting before about the dentist, and I've been having ongoing dental work, which I do not enjoy, but it's just a fact. It's a reality.
Yeah.
It has to be
That's
done.
like that. Yeah, exactly.
And it's what you're saying. It's a long-term thing for the long-term health of my teeth and so on. This has to be done. I
Mm.
don't like it.
Yes, but you just
Yeah.
go through it. Put yourself
So
through
that's right. And that's a very which is why we were talking before about this, which is why dentists invariably are going to have Capricorn and or Saturn strongly featured in their charts.
it. Mm. Yeah, and that's why it's about getting the job done. Not sometimes, often, I've found most dentists that I've been to don't have a lot of empathy. It's about getting in and doing the work.
Yes. And knowing that the patient is probably not enjoying themselves at all, but that so they have to kind of cut off a bit
Yeah.
emotionally just to get in there and do what they have to do.
I remember when I worked as a dental assistant for a brief time, I it was the very first day because I was learning on the job, but then you didn't have to go to TAFE or whatever. And yeah, and the first day was dental surgery. So the dentist is cutting this person's tooth, and I'm going doing something, and he says, "Come on, shove that in there. They can't feel it." Oh God,
Oh my God.
But it's just very matter of fact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very matter of fact. And it makes me think too of perhaps someone who's running a business and the business is struggling. And when Capricorn is active, they might have to make some really hard decisions. And that a decision might be they might have to let one of their staff go. And
Yes.
they don't want to, but they have to. They have to make a hard choice for that business, for that entity to survive. It's that kind of thing.
Now, when we bring that energy into the moon, because we're talking about feelings, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then you've got Pluto in there as well, which is intense, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I've heard some of my Capricorn friends say things like, "Oh, I don't do feelings," and we have a laugh, but it's a sign that is quite famous for that. It's not because its opposite sign is Cancer, which is all feeling.
Well, yeah, this is what I was going to say. This sort of highlights what we spoke about last time with the moon in Capricorn, is that Cancer Capricorn polarity, isn't it?
That's right.
That um and in a way, I sort of, to me it's like male female energy
Mm,
because
mm,
that's Cancerian energy is very soft, gentle, nurturing, and
that's right.
Capricorn isn't terribly like that.
That's right.
Mm.
Cancer is fundamentally very kind, and
Yeah,
Capricorn is tough, and it's more business-like.
yeah, and it's not saying that males are all like that. But we can look at those polarities within ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come to terms with it. There's a part of us, like you're saying, someone who doesn't really want to fire someone. They like their staff member. They'd love to have them on, but the reality is I have to, otherwise I'm going to go broke.
Exactly. And the
Yeah,
business will close and nobody will have a job.
yeah, exactly.
That's right. And Capricorn too is very much times when we do have to make hard decisions. We might have to cut back on our budget, on our spending, difficult choices need to be made and so on. So it's just over this full moon, there may be for some people some of that, because the sun's still in Cancer, but the
Mm,
sun will be at 29 degrees of Cancer, its last day on its Cancerian journey for the year.
mm,
Opposite. So that polarity, as you say, is the emotions and the feelings, and then the hard, clear-eyed choices that might need to be made,
mm.
you know.
Yeah.
But the Pluto, so let's talk
I was
Pluto.
just going to say that because conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius, right? This is the collective, isn't it? This is about
That's right. So
intense, I think, intense feelings in the collective.
yes,
Mm,
it's very powerful. So we know that Pluto got to 2 degrees of Aquarius and then has turned retrograde and is heading back towards its last little foray into Capricorn. And by the way, it will get in a couple of months' time to 29 degrees of Capricorn.
mm,
And then it will go forward again and exit Capricorn. I want to say forever, but for
yeah,
250 years odd.
mm,
But for us, it's forever. So this degree is very significant. So Capricorn is retrograding, heading back towards Capricorn. And on this full moon, it's sitting right there at 0, retrograde, conjunct the full moon where everything is fully illuminated and in the light. And there's Pluto, the lord of the underworld,
Mm.
in the unseen, in the deep shadows,
Yeah.
powerfully sitting right there next to that Capricorn full moon. So that speaks to me. One way to look at that is like big things happening on this full moon, I think, in the world politically around power bases, power struggles. And because it's 29 degrees of Capricorn, the power bases of this world, who in many ways operate in the shadows,
Mm.
are likely to want to really pull out some extreme measures to hold on to their power,
Mm.
because we're talking about 29 degrees.
Mm.
It
Mm.
can get very, very intense with the addition of Pluto.
With Pluto, when does it go to 0 degrees Aquarius? Or
It's sitting at 0 now. It's at
yeah,
0
that's right.
degrees and
Yeah.
54 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
Oh,
kind of come back from 2 through
that's right.
1. It's just come out of 1 degree.
I
Yeah.
was just looking at the chart. Um, that that 0 degree, that's really powerful too, isn't it? So you've got the 29 degrees, the moon in Capricorn, but you've got the Pluto in Aquarius at 0 degrees,
Yep.
retrograde. Um, you know, I always think of Pluto as, and you've spoken about this before. It's like you said, it's going down into the underworld. When we go into that descent process in anything, it's like an initiation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The collective initiation that we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. And, esoterically, we can say that Capricorn is also a sign of initiation through challenges and hardship and
Mm.
struggle, and the inner fortitude that's required to endure what must be endured.
Yeah.
And it's not all grim. Like I
No.
know this all sounds a bit grim, but it might be for some people, depending on your situation in your own chart. If this is hitting and activating directly something in your own chart, you're going to be feeling this probably quite strongly, perhaps more than someone who's really got nothing much going on around those, at the
Mm.
very end of Capricorn, Cancer,
Mm.
early Aquarius.
Mm.
But yes, that whole cuspal thing.
Mm.
Um, the change of sign,
Mm.
signs that sit next to each other in the zodiac have very little in common.
Yeah.
Capricorn is yang, masculine, cardinal, earth. Aquarius, is yin. It's yin, feminine. I beg your pardon, because it's an earth sign. Even though it feels masculine, it's actually a feminine earth sign.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and it's cardinal, whereas Aquarius is a fixed sign and it's air, yang, masculine. They're very different energetically.
Mm.
And Capricorn represents the peak and the pinnacle of human accomplishment and achievement and success. But Aquarius, in many ways, on an individual level,
Mm.
but Aquarius is absolutely, as you say, it's about the collective, the people, the bigger, broader vision beyond the top of the mountain. What happens when we get to the top of the mountain of achievement?
Yeah.
Then you're facing the whole universe.
So that's a paradigm shift for sure.
Huge. It absolutely is a paradigm shift.
And there's with any sort of paradigm shift, there's a new learning process. You've got to learn about the next phase,
Yeah.
the next plateau, whatever it is I'm about to embark on, but you can't see it yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could be potentially a fairly dramatic full moon couple of days.
Mm.
And even straight after the full moon, it's exact at 8:16 p.m. our time. In those couple of hours afterwards, that moon will literally exactly pass over Pluto.
Mm.
So, there can be a period there that evening. We might wake up on Monday morning, for example, and go, wow, what the hell just happened? On the world stage,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a bit like that on a daily basis at the moment, but
Mm. Mm.
um, So these anaretic degrees can come in the form of a crisis, that they have a kind of a critical quality, and it can be as simple for an individual as it's time to make a clear decision. I can't do that anymore. That's
Mm,
over. Might
mm,
be to do with a relationship, a job, a way of thinking, your diet, can be all sorts of things,
mm.
like, okay, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'm done with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just adding to that, with the moon is also, which we talked about before that we were recording, was a sextile to Neptune and
Yes.
Mars. So that's, Neptune is about perspective, isn't it? It's about seeing something, perhaps seeing something we didn't see before, or see ourselves in a new light. Um,
Yeah.
changing our perspective, put it that way.
Absolutely. And with Neptune, it's often that happens in a more intuitive way. It's
Mm,
just a sense of that just doesn't feel right to me,
mm, mm,
or I just know that this is how I need to move forward. I don't ask me how I know, I just know. It's
mm.
more works like that, but
Yeah.
it is a real shift of perspective. And Neptune's sitting at 29 degrees, which it has been for some time because it's not moving very fast at the moment. It doesn't move fast anyway. And it's only recently turned retrograde, so it still hasn't picked up a lot of speed. Not that Neptune's ever speedy, but um and then you mentioned Mars. This full moon has a trine to Mars
Mm.
because on the same day, I'm just wondering whether I did on the morning of the full moon. So that is for us Sunday morning. Mars leaves Taurus, where it's been the last 6 months. So the day before, it's at 29 degrees of Taurus,
Mm.
and it moves into Gemini. So that's another major change of energy.
Yeah. Mm.
So Mars, high energy planet, when Mars is going through a sign, usually for 6 weeks, it's bringing energy to that sign, is charging it up with energy. That's the way I like to think of Mars going through the different signs, and it's like the engine's turned on now. So Gemini, which already has Jupiter now in Gemini for the last couple of
Yeah.
months for the
Yeah.
next year,
Mm.
you bring Mars and Jupiter into the same field together, and in August they will be exactly together.
Mm.
That is a lot of energy. Jupiter is high, big energy. Mars is high octane energy, really activating Gemini in a big way.
Mm. Gosh, I wonder what's going to play out there.
So,
Lots.
yeah. So, when Mars goes through Gemini, and for people who have Mars in Gemini, they have a lot of energy to communicate.
Mm. Mm.
They're driven, they speak a lot, they say a lot, they talk fast, they can't get it out fast enough. There's a lot to say.
Mm.
Or they might be writers, they might be prolific in their writing. They're often in the media.
Mm.
Um, they might interview people and they're very energized about it.
Mm. Mm.
You know? Yeah. And because Mars archetypally is a warrior energy, it could be like fighting words.
Mm.
I often think of Mars as a warrior, and in the different signs, what's his favorite weapon?
Yes. It provokes us to be assertive too.
Yes.
Or if we might have been holding back on something, it
Yeah,
pushes us to sort of speak up, say it.
that's
That.
right.
Mm.
Exactly. Just speak.
Mm.
Yeah. Tell me what you really mean and what you really want to say. And there's going to be a lot of that. So things could get very argumentative.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, we'll see it in the world. We'll see it in the media because Gemini rules the media. And Gemini, of course, is a sign of duality. It's a sign of the twins. There is always a pairing with Gemini. There is always this and that.
Mm. Yeah.
It's not even either or. It's actually both, and it can flip from one to the other in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. It's like saying, well, you say this and you say that, but actually both are right.
That's right. And let's consider both points of view. And
Yes.
Geminis are often accused of being very fickle and changing their mind
Mm, mm,
and being unreliable because of that.
mm.
But it's just the nature of Gemini to flip from one side to the other, because so much of life and experience exists in duality, doesn't it? You
Yeah,
know?
I was just thinking that it's a very grey way of seeing things. There's not really a lot of black and white. You can just really easily flip,
Yeah.
and it's mutable, isn't it?
Very, very
It
mutable.
meanders around, up and
Yeah.
down, information, situations, people, it's on the move.
And very quick, very
Yes.
fast, very swift, you know?
Yes, and
Yeah.
it interprets things much quicker, first, often I see before other people do, and then they go, well, what?
Yeah.
And they're on to the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you, I know a few people with Mars and Gemini, and having conversations with them can be really fun and really stimulating and really exciting because you can
Mm,
cover a lot of territory
mm.
in a really short amount of time,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
because there's energy that it's so charged up. And there's just a lot to talk about. So that energy is going to be very active. And as I said, it starts. So July the 20th, the 19th, 20th, just before the full moon, Mars will be at the very last degree of Taurus, just kind of finishing up whatever its purpose was in the very fixed, earthy, grounded sign of Taurus. Look, just a simple analogy could be maybe you've been working hard in your garden.
Mm,
This weekend could be a time when, okay, I'm going to get that job finished.
mm, mm.
And you just feel a sense of urgency because Mars is at the last degree, and that's very much what last degrees, 29 degrees, are often about. It's
Yeah.
a sense of urgency. There's no time to lose. I have to get it done by this time. And you don't even know why, but an astrologer would say 29 degrees
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
because it's about to change signs, you see, and then we're going to move into a completely different zone.
Mm, mm,
Or it might be to do with your finances, like you've been putting it off or you've been doing bits of it, but you have to get it sorted this weekend because Mars is at the very end of, come to think of it, as Mars is coming to the end of Taurus, it's something I put off all the time, but I made myself sit down at my desk and get all my accounts in order. It's that
mm,
time of year. And I just plowed through it and I did it.
mm, mm.
I wasn't even thinking of the Mars in Taurus, but that's right. Coming to the end of Taurus, it just felt like, do it now.
Yeah. Get it done.
And then when it goes into Gemini, like it's so stimulating, mentally stimulating. It can get so stimulating. At times we can feel a bit exhausted and frenetic, and it might disturb sleep.
Yeah. I've been feeling like that actually, but yeah, because my moon's in Gemini and already feeling the effects.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
so Jupiter's been coming through too.
Yep. Yep.
That's a lot of energy in Gemini.
Mm,
A
mm,
lot.
mm.
I think we're going to see a lot more backflips in the media. We're
Yeah.
already seeing signs of that. Um, but a lot more public discussions and arguments and debates, which would be very nice. I would hope to see that because there's not been much of that going on.
Mm,
Um, the whole issue around media censorship, social media, so on is going to get very heated, I think.
yeah. Mm.
Siblings.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Gemini rules our relationship dynamics with siblings and siblings in our lives. So there could be conflict, there could be just great conversations with a lot of energy. There
Mm,
might be something going on in the family system where there's a need to have a lot of contact with a or all siblings, might be something going on with parents.
mm,
In fact, I was just spent some time with a good friend recently, and she was sharing that there is a conversation she needs to have with a sibling who she really cares about, but a difficult conversation. I've just been reminded of that. And
mm.
she'll be seeing her soon. And so Mars is going to give the energy to do that.
Yeah.
We had a really good conversation about how best she might want to approach that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Mars in Gemini and mental health,
Yep,
right? Could be a trigger for some people, whatever it is. Um, yeah, give your brain a rest, people.
I know.
Mental health is so important.
I agree. I agree because Mars is a hot energy
Mm,
and it can literally heat up our brain.
mm,
I've experienced that. My dad, before he died, went through I won't go into the details at all, but I used to put my hands on his head and give him Reiki, and his brain was hot. He had
mm.
Aries rising, but it didn't used to be hot. Something happened to him
Yeah.
in his 80s. And his brain was hot, and I'd never experienced that before. And it was like his brain was on fire,
Mm,
and it
mm.
made him a bit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but Reiki would calm him down. So the heated brain in medical astrology, Mars is infections, inflammation, heat,
Mm,
and Gemini rules the lungs.
mm.
So we might be wanting to. There's a lot of lung issues going around. I've noticed. Me and my family have been having that. Um, to really take care of our lung health,
Yeah. Yeah.
through good herbs and supplements and things like that.
We were also talking before we started recording about it because I have a boo-boo on my finger, which is
Yes,
cut, which has gotten infected, and the hands represent Gemini.
yes,
Mars is, rules sharp things, and now I've got this infection on my finger. So yeah, it's really, and it didn't get in. I had the cut. I did the cut on 5 days ago, but it was just last night during my sleep. It came up infected.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
that's interesting.
very classic Mars in Gemini.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So,
Gemini is the lungs, but it's also our arms and hands and fingers. And
mm, mm,
yes,
mm,
and that did happen to me last time Mars was in Gemini for a long time. It was retrograde. I had lots of band-aids on my fingers and on my
yeah.
hands. I just kept cutting them and I had an infected nail. And that's right.
So if you're a chef or you love to cook, just be extra careful.
With those sharp knives,
Yeah.
exactly. I was I was doing some cooking yesterday, and my grandson is almost 7 with Venus in Gemini. He wanted to help, which is great. So I gave him a sharp knife, and I'm standing right next to him, and he's cutting up apples. And I couldn't take my eyes off because I could see his finger, the way he was holding the apple was right in line for the knife blade. So
Mm,
I had to keep finding different ways for him to hold the apple because I could just see how easily that could happen.
yes. Yeah.
You know? Um,
Mm,
but all was fine. He remained all fingers intact, no blood.
very good. Of course.
But you can get down to these little things just
Mm,
in our day, that can happen with these planets are moving and changing signs and so on.
mm,
So yes, a lot of stimulation around communication, which will kick in
mm,
on the day of the full moon. And
mm,
the full moon is trining that Mars because Pluto at 0 of Aquarius will be trining the Mars at 0 of Gemini. So it can be quite a potent couple of days around this full moon.
wow. We're still
Yeah.
in the early part of this.
I know we haven't moved on yet.
There's a
I
lot happening.
know. Um, let's see. So on the 22nd, the day after the full moon, and Mercury, which is the ruling planet of Gemini, is in Leo and makes a square to Uranus, which
Mm,
is the higher octave of Mercury. So it sort of emphasizes that Mercury, Gemini, high energy around those same themes. And um, and that evening of the 22nd, which is our Monday, the sun will leave Cancer
mm,
and go into the sign of Leo.
mm,
So these few days around the full moon feels like quite a shift of energy, and we're coming out of more of the watery influence,
mm-hmm,
more into the more yang energies of, fire and air,
mm, mm,
right? Because, the moon will have moved quickly into Aquarius, the sun will move into Leo, Mars is in Gemini, Pluto's in Aquarius. So it's a real change of energy over those couple of
Mm,
days.
mm,
23rd, Sun will be exactly opposite the Pluto. Um, by the way, on the 22nd, so this is all around the full moon,
mm,
Eris, Eris.
mhm.
I know we talked a lot about her a year or two ago because she was very active with the squares to Pluto.
Yeah.
Eris is one of the newer bodies out in the Kuiper belt that was discovered back in, I think it was 2005, something like that.
Mm,
And she was named after the goddess of chaos and discord and disruption. Um, Moving very, very slowly. Her orbit is over 500 years. So very slow moving body, has been in Aries for the entirety of the last century and won't leave Aries for a few years yet. I
mm.
forget the exact year now, but in the 2030s, or maybe late 30s, something like that. Um, so she's retrograde. She's come to a standstill now. She's stationary and will turn retrograde at 25 degrees of Aries all around, all over this full moon. And she's conjunct Chiron, which is at about 23, 24 of Aries. So there's a lot going on around this full moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. There could
It's,
be some significant shifts going on for us individually. There certainly is on the world stage. Things are
mm,
moving at breakneck speed. I even overheard by chance someone in the mainstream media making a comment about how things are moving so fast on a daily basis, you can
mm.
barely catch your breath.
Yeah, and that creates a sense of uncertainty, I think,
Yes.
because you just don't know. And you go, well, I can't count on this, I can't predict that. But
No,
I mean, people like to make plans, don't they? You just don't. And plans, big plans around money, finances, real estate,
that's right.
those sorts of things. I'm like, I don't know. And
No,
I know people who've had their finger on the pause button since 2020 about that.
right.
Yeah. I go,
Because there's this feeling of anything could happen and
yes,
anything is happening.
yes. And it is
Who, I
exactly.
mean, who knew, 5 or 6 years ago that life was going to be like this?
Mm, mm,
I mean, some had some clue about that, but not exactly what it was going to look like. So big, big times. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we call this a blue moon. So just on a energetic level, even calling it a blue moon. And just that phrase, once in a blue moon, it just
mm,
adds something, doesn't it? Like a
mm,
flavor to this, the significance of this full
mm,
moon
mm.
somehow. I
Yeah,
mean, you can say, look, oh, we have a full moon in Capricorn every year. What's the big deal? But it's how it lines up with everything else.
it's all the other aspects. Yeah. And I was
Yeah,
just thinking about, with that Neptune there, that shift in perspective. Maybe some people who've been hanging on to the old world, the way things used to be, maybe they'll finally get that clarity, or maybe that'll the perspective can finally change and I'll go, yeah, I can see it now. Things are just not going to go back the way they were.
that's right.
And we're in a whole new world, a whole new phase of evolution, and goodness knows where the hell it's going.
Yeah, yeah. And because Neptune is so much about letting go, you just have to
Mm,
release
mm,
and let go, especially at 29 of Pisces.
mm. And that Pluto and Aquarius, I mean, really talking about initiation, we're being initiated into a technocracy, aren't we? And this techno revolution as well that's going on, and
That's right.
using AI to help you write something, or to create images, or it's like, what's that about?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a whole new world.
It sure is. It
Yeah.
sure is. And it's very hard to imagine what this world will look like in 20 years' time.
I wonder how the sun in Leo feels about that. Focus on creativity, and you said we're going into that on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that,
that's the polarity, isn't it, of a
yeah,
Leo and Aquarius?
yeah, yeah,
The individual creator,
yeah.
Leo, look what I created. but it can also be the Leo creator who creates using technology, or it
Yeah,
might be absolutely against the technology. You know,
yeah,
they're opposite signs. Are they going to integrate
yeah,
or are they going to oppose each other?
yeah. I mean, I've been trying to. I've thought I don't particularly like the idea of AI in our lives, but I'm trying to focus on how I can use it in a positive and constructive
Yeah,
way that is helps me, like, the invention of the washing machine to make life easier, or the
right,
dishwasher, that sort of thing,
right.
looking at that to try and see it in a different light. And I guess that's that shifting of my own perspective.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know it's everything has its downfall. Like, people are trying to bring in some people have bought electric cars and now they regret that they did, and there's been a lot of problems with it. So that was something that was a fail, really. But
yeah.
other things, I'm hoping that AI doesn't fail us like that.
Well, I think it depends who's running it and managing it and what their intention is. It's all that,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's all about intention.
And I think, as going forward, we have to talk about AI, because this is Aquarius, this is a
That's right.
energy.
That's right. And Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years,
Mm,
Pluto's job in any sign, in every sign, includes dredging up the shadow of that
mm,
sign. And in Aquarius, it can be using technology to have total control and to
mm.
completely change the human race,
Yeah, yeah.
not for the better. So that's the shadow aspect of it.
Mm,
But then the other aspect of Pluto's role, bringing up the shadow, is to then purge that out of the system,
mm,
and to clean all of that up and to clean it out so that the really positive qualities of Aquarius can breathe and live and fully express themselves really powerfully. So, in a nutshell, that's what it's about. So it's that real combination, of the dark and the light of
mm,
always with Pluto.
mm.
Yeah, so AI is absolutely got a big issue
Yeah.
around all that. How is it being used? I mean, in a way, like spell check
Mm.
is an aspect of AI, and spell check's great, but sometimes it can be really annoying.
Yeah. But I just want to think of it as just casting my mind back, talking about Capricorn. A new technology was paper.
Absolutely.
It was
Printing.
there was a technology, yeah, and then introduced printing, and then which introduced books, and here we are today with flooded with information.
Yeah. There's no question that technology is here to stay. And
Yeah.
as we move forward, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. So, yes, there's so many, so many things. So, yeah, just Eris, just a quick reminder about Eris is a very disruptive energy, and it's like her mandate, if you like, is to cause disruption, to reveal and expose what is not equal and true and real.
Mm. Mm.
So, and she doesn't mess around. She it is said that she was the cause of the Trojan War because of actions that she took to expose um, people's insincerity and lack of honoring the truth and equality. She's very much about
Yeah.
equality. So yes, so strong times. So, and then the sun goes into Leo, and of course Leo is the lion and the lion heart, and that will bring us, of course, on the 8th of August, coming up, and we'll talk about that at the Leo new moon. Um, the lion's gate, the lion energy, and all the symbolism that's represented by that. So the sun in this lunar cycle goes into Leo on July the 22nd in the evening, around about 6 o'clock.
Mm.
Um, on the 26th, Mercury um, leaves Leo and goes into Virgo.
Mm.
Mercury loves being in Virgo. It's a ruling planet of Virgo. It rules Virgo and Gemini. In Virgo, Mercury is all about precision, um, discrimination, sorting, using the mind to analyze and discriminate and figure things out, and then
Mm.
apply that in a practical way because it's an earth sign,
Mm. Mm.
right? So our minds can very happily receive Mercury in the sign of Virgo. However, and there is a however with this one, because Mercury will be beginning to slow down now because it's going to turn retrograde. It'll get to 4 degrees of Virgo on August the 5th and then start to turn back, and it will go back over those early Virgo degrees and back into Leo. So it's not finished with Leo.
Mm.
And we can talk more about that then. So
Right.
just know that we're coming into another Mercury retrograde phase. Some people feel that Mercury retrograde is no big deal. Some people say they really like it. Other people don't have a great time with Mercury retrograde. I tend to be one of those. I'm aware that it often has an impact on my health. So I've learned to take certain precautions in the lead up to Mercury retrograde and during Mercury retrograde.
Right.
And in Virgo, that can absolutely apply. But, people really do experience this quite differently.
Mm.
But, there's all the issues around technology and equipment and machines that go on with Mercury retrograde, of course.
So on the same time that it goes retrograde, Venus moves into Virgo as well, I think. Oh my God, I was just
Oh, she does that on the 5th of August.
yeah, the 5th of all. I didn't
Oh,
use
yes, no, you're right.
yeah.
Sorry, yes, I'm back on the 26th of July when Mercury goes into. Absolutely. On the
Mm.
same day that Mercury turns retrograde at 4 of Virgo, Venus moves into Virgo.
Mm.
Yeah. And then a couple of days later, Mercury retrograde will conjunct Venus at
Mhm.
3 of Virgo. So if you've got anything in your chart, folks, and I do in early Virgo, that's going to get a lot of action from Mercury and from Venus.
Mm.
Venus in Virgo brings a beautiful sort of refinement to the sign of Virgo.
Mm. That's interesting.
Yeah, people with Venus in Virgo, they love, like, their aesthetic taste is very, very particular. It's
Mm.
subtle, it's fine.
Mm.
It's not like Leo is big, broad splashes of color.
Mm.
Venus in Virgo is more meticulous. I often think, those beautiful watercolors, botanical watercolors?
Mm. Mm.
That's very Virgo to me, very Venus in Virgo.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I have Pluto 2 degrees Virgo. So that's
Okay.
kind of
Okay, so watch that space over those few
mm.
days as Mercury's turning retrograde. It'll come
Mm.
over once and then it'll get to 4. And it'll be moving quite slowly then. So there
Mm.
could be like a whole week or so when that Pluto's been activated for
Mm.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
My South Node's there in very early Virgo. So when our South Node is being triggered by a transit, old patterns and things from the past can come up to
Mm-hmm.
be seen and to be acknowledged and recognized, old patterns.
Mm.
And released, or it can be communication from someone you haven't heard in years. It's very common.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or, Mercury retrograde in Virgo could be something like, I need to go back and um, do some more work on perfecting that skill,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or something needs repairing and you've been putting it off for ages and, now's the time to get your tools out and repair it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Wow.
Um,
Where are we up to?
Oh, okay. We bypassed the new moon. So August the 5th, Mercury turns retrograde and Venus goes into Virgo. But on August the 4th is the new moon.
Aha.
So the new moon will be quite busy as well because it's at 12 degrees of Leo,
Mm-hmm.
Sun conjunct Moon, 12 of Leo, sextile Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, which are coming closer and closer together. So that's a very high energized
Mm.
new moon and the day after Mercury. So Mercury will be stationary, turning retrograde, and then Venus goes into Virgo. So yeah, there's quite a lot of energy around the new moon coming up on the 4th. And then, of course, on the 8th is the 8th of
Lion's
August.
Day.
the Lion's Gate.
Mm.
And just to sort of touch on this, on August the 15th, Mars will make the exact conjunction with Jupiter. Now we're just emerging out of a Mars-Uranus conjunction, and we'll be coming into in the middle of August a Mars-Jupiter conjunction, smack in the middle of Gemini at 16 degrees of Gemini. That's a lot of energy.
Mm.
Another high energy one. So that's the rundown, really.
I'm typing up a few notes because I can't write with boo-boo on my finger.
Right.
I have to type instead. Oh
Yeah.
dear.
And you
Mm.
can just imagine, someone who is a writer, whether they use a pen or a computer and they injure their finger or fingers or hand,
Mm.
you know, very frustrating.
It is.
And, Mars often triggers anger and frustration, and it
Yeah.
might be around
Mm.
something
Yes.
like that. Or it might be having arguments with people and they're not agreeing with us and people getting angry
Mm.
and
Mm.
getting verbally or anger out on the streets as well on traffic roads. Mars in Gemini, watch that one, folks, because
Yeah.
that could get very heated.
Road rage.
Yeah.
Look out for the road rage.
People, cutting in, and because Gemini is really quick and Mars is a, fast moving, hot energy. Mars in Gemini, people get very impatient in traffic. And when Mercury goes retrograde, also, Mars will still be in Gemini. There can be a lot of stuff. You can get stuck in breakdowns. Cars can break down, holding up traffic for miles behind.
Mm. Mm.
That's a kind of stuff that can go on with
Mm.
this.
Mm.
So, again, breathing, doing what we know keeps us grounded, taking time out to just stop, get grounded, take breaths. Gemini is very much about the lungs,
Mm. Mm.
breathing.
Yes. Beware of breathing in too much cold air. I actually lost my voice once
Yeah.
doing that out in the middle of winter doing a sky watch, and 2 weeks after that I couldn't speak. And it wasn't sick, just couldn't speak.
Right, you couldn't speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone. Before we sign off, I just want to say thank you for leaving your comments, liking the episodes. Really appreciate that. And we know you're there and we try to respond to those comments. And we do respond to those comments. But yeah, we very much appreciate it. So if anyone has a comment about this episode, please feel free to leave it. And if you didn't understand something, ask a question. Leave that question there too. Because I was just thinking while you were talking at the end there, when I first started this, it was like there was a lot of, an astrologer will talk astro speak. And I would ask you to, what does that mean in layman's terms? But
Right.
now that I'm understanding a lot of what you're saying, I'm processing it while you're talking. And I'm thinking, oh God, we should actually explain what that means in
Right. For people who might be very new.
people who knew. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully, if you're watching this, you have some understanding of the astrological landscape. And yeah, but there are a lot of people online and lots of information you can get online about astrology too, as well as watching these episodes. So, thank you very much, Babula, for all that information.
You're so welcome, Cheryl.
Can't believe we spent so long just on around the moon. There's a lot happening,
There's a lot.
a lot of triggering. So anyway, until next time, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well, be safe, and we'll see you in another 2 weeks.